sample section.
Perfect. What do you,
Recording in progress.
All right, well, good morning. It's 10 o'clock. Some committee members are still cramming, reading the agenda, but that's okay. Welcome.
Which ones are that?
Right here.
It's just Robert's Rules section. It's confusing.
There will be a quiz on Robert's Rules when we get there, so I hope some of you are prepared.
I'll take a pass-fail.
Well, you should know it all by now, Mike, after all these years.
Amazing, though, there's only small parts that we use.
Right.
It's a great thing. It's fun to watch the, on C-SPAN, watch the congressional stuff when they get into the parliamentary stuff. I was watching a committee the other night, and they were trying to take down the comments from one of the congresswomen that didn't like something she was saying to the witness.
Yeah.
And they were having to go, and they had a parliamentarian that was right there to tell him the chair what he could and could not do. The chair had to step aside, and the vice chair had to come in. It was very interesting.
Yeah, got to follow the rules. All right, well, we will go ahead and get started. Changes to the agenda. I don't think we have anything to add. I am going to kind of reorganize some of the resolutions under administration just to keep the similar things together. But other than that, no changes. I don't think we have anyone from the public here. Let's do the minutes from April 6th. Somebody move that, please. Susan, seconded by Rich. Questions, comments? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous, thank you. All right, and to start us off this morning, I'm delighted that Leslie Tabor is here from the Tompkins County Public Library. I invited her to come and talk to us a little bit more and give us a more full introduction to herself. She's been here now for a couple of months and talk to us a little bit about what's going on at the library. So welcome, Leslie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to join the committee. I began on November 28th, so that means I've been here, 5 months, and it's gone quickly in all the best ways. Also, wishing you the very happiest of holidays. Today is Star Wars Day, so may the 4th be with you. I know, not all of you may share that belief, but it's very dear to me. We are having a lightsaber demonstration at the library today at 4:30. So if any of you have your own sabers and skills that you would like to show off and share with the community, please do stop by.
I'm looking at Rich John here, definitely.
So a little bit about me. My career has been dedicated to public libraries. I've had some very strange sort of side paths into parking consulting and program management. So I'm delighted to be back in libraries, and I'm thrilled to be in Ithaca. I went to library school at Syracuse University, and that's when I first fell in love with Tompkins County. We would drive in on the weekends and have Purity ice cream, and usually time it with the book sale, walk through the commons, go to the Apple Harvest Festival. So it really feels like a dream come true to be here and be a part of the library. I know that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants like our own Susan Currie, who is with you today. So very exciting to be in an ecosystem and an environment that loves libraries, that celebrates reading, that has such a rich book culture. Another friendly reminder that the Friends of the Library Spring Book Sale is underway. So Saturday, maybe I'll see you there, greeting you and giving you information about which direction to go. So I want to say that I feel like I arrived at a very lucky time. The peak of COVID has passed, knock on wood. Very pleased that our staffing levels, thanks to your generosity and foresight and willingness to be a great partner, have returned to pre-COVID levels. We do have 2 new Generalist Librarian 1 starting on June the 12th, and that is directly related to our last budget ask. So very excited to share with you that we received the monies, we appreciate your support, and we're putting that into action. Very excited for 2 new talented people to join the community. I have spent a lot of time, evaluating and considering and assessing as the newcomer, not only to the community, but to the library, what are the things we do really, really well? What are the things that I can, beg, steal, or borrow for when I'm before committees such as yourself? So we do, my main concern as the director of the library is balancing the programs, the collections, the customer service, and then also the staffing side with the budget and just making sure we're headed in the right direction. I know that we're all anticipating some impact from some of the decisions at the state level. So there's, not a small amount of hand-wringing and concerns going on. So whatever we as the library can help you understand our needs and where we're headed. I do think one thing that I've sort of flagged for myself is the idea of succession planning. It is nothing as scandalous as the show Succession, if any of you are watching that. It's literally, one more FTE to support our business office for when our business manager retires. But if you want me to make it seem more succession-y, I'm happy to do that. One thing that really stood out to me, we live in a really fast changing world, and oftentimes it's hard to be thoughtfully responsive to that. But I'm very pleased to see that the county and the library are committed to things like public safety. The security presence that we have at the Tompkins County Public Library is the best that I've experienced, and I have worked in a lot of public libraries, and that includes the city of Phoenix and New York City. Our guards are so engaged. They are so friendly and welcoming. They have great customer service. The goal is always to help a person and not be punitive. So I know that is also a direct reflection of support from all of you in terms of our security budget. So thank you for that. It makes a huge difference in day-to-day operations. So I know that, this is just part of the beginning of conversations and we're heading into budget season. So again, I really appreciate your time. I did, not a moment goes by, an opportunity can't pass me by making sure that all of you have library cards. So you're welcome to come on over and make sure that you have a library card. We'll let you choose the design. If you have fees, we will waive those because we've been fine free. I did want to just take a moment and share with you some of the new augmented offerings that we have. So you should be able to see my screen. There's our website, tcpl.org. Just for your information, we do, of course, make our budget public on this website, so I always like to point that out. But because we have such a great partnership and our budget is healthy and strong, we're able to offer things like Hoopla now, which is free with your library card. I don't know why I'm still signed in with my Phoenix card, but free ebooks, e-audiobooks. Anything that you find on here is instantly on demand available, so there's never a hold. Then we also recently added Canopy. So that is a free movie streaming service that also has lots of British television. So we want to meet and celebrate the needs of our community. We know that the library is not only for learning, but it's for enhancing the quality of life and your personal growth. And so again, that is not possible without committees such as yourself who are committed to the library, who are very responsive listeners. And it's really comforting to know that we all believe in the purpose of a public library in our community, and we are able to work together to make that happen. I've been in environments where these types of relationships have been very contentious, and they don't make you feel good, and they don't inspire you, but that is not the case in Tompkins County or in Ithaca, so I just want to say thank you for your support and just being lovely humans in general, which sometimes seems like a rarity. So I'm happy to further expound on anything I may have missed. I'm also happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm also happy to be quiet and let you continue on with your agenda.
Thank you so much. That was a great overview. I will look to the committee, see if folks have questions. Mike Lane.
Morning, Leslie. Thanks for being here at our meeting. Wondered, where are you with your labor contracts, are they expiring soon, or what's the status of them?
Hi, Mike. So good to see you.
Nice
I
to
heard
see
you
you.
talking about watching C-SPAN before the meeting started. I also love to watch C-SPAN, so I'm glad I'm not the only person that does that. So our labor contracts are in very good shape. I lucked out in that they were negotiated before I got here. So our current contracts are for 2022 through 2024. So we anticipate the next round of negotiations to begin probably in next July.
Okay.
And start negotiating for 24, 26.
Another question I had is I'm going to miss the term for it, the lab where the people come in and they use the 3D printer and
The
all that.
makerspace.
The what? The makerspace.
makerspace.
That's right. I couldn't remember the term. How is the usage of that?
So I'm really glad you asked. I've been trying to go around to all the different sort of areas of the library and meet specifically with those teams. So I'm not just saying this because I'm in front of a government operations committee. It's the truth. Tompkins County Public Library has the best executed makerspace that I have seen. The people who were influential in creating that space are actually published. I have a book on my shelf right now from the American Libraries Association where the TCPL makerspace librarians contributed a chapter. So I love your question about usage because I can proudly say that it is being utilized. A lot of libraries, because makerspaces were the hot thing, but people didn't really know how to use them, so they spend a lot of money and they create these big open spaces and then they just sit empty. And that is not the case at TCPL. So it's also very diverse. So we have people coming in for quilting classes, and maybe those are aunties and grandmas, and we've partnered with the History Center because they have a quilting exhibit going on. We have very active dozens of teens every single week because they know that the library is a safe place, and they come in and they create something on a library laptop and then they 3D print it off in real time and have it to take home. We also have one-on-one makerspace help. So we know that people are intimidated by technology, they're intimidated by machinery, they want to be safe. So one of the most impactful things that we do is offer people one-on-one help. Usually when you have a one-on-one session, you build your confidence and then they're off to the races and we can't, keep them away. So I don't have those exact numbers. I'm happy to get those for you. But I would say based on open hours, classes that we offer, and then one-on-one help, we're helping possibly, 100 people a week through whatever iteration of programming in all different age groups.
I don't need exact numbers. I just wanted to get an idea of how it was going.
Yes, it's going exceptionally well. It's also connected to the digital lab, which I know you know. So we have a lot of synergy between learning something on a laptop and then making it actually come to fruition in the makerspace.
Great, thank you.
I got two other.
Go ahead, Mike.
I don't want to monopolize here, but I wanted to ask, have you had a chance to visit any of the rural libraries yet?
Yes, so everyone, well, I don't know about rural, but other Finger Lakes libraries. So everyone has been so incredibly welcoming. So the Tompkins County Public Libraries, those directors, they were very kind. They met me at Purity Ice Cream early on and talked about, the differences in our communities, the way that I can support them as the director of the Central Library. I've been to Lansing. I've spent the day at Trumansburg. I have visited the Seymour Library in Auburn. So I definitely still need to get out to like Groton and Newfield and a couple of other places. But also kind of related to your question, my true heart is to really expand our outreach services. So we know we serve a rural area. We know that high-speed internet connection is still a challenge for folks. We know that sometimes transportation is a huge barrier to access because people physically can't get to the library. So I do think outreach and partnership with our rural partners and other reading centers will be essential.
Well, you're certainly invited out to Southworth and Dryden. We'd like to see you out there at some point.
Wonderful. I'll meet you there.
Well, let us know. We'll work it out with our library director. My last, if I could just ask, and I'm thinking about the area outside the library where the bus stop is and all that. Sometimes in the past we've had some difficulties with folks in that area. How's things going there now?
So I love that question because I get to give a somewhat controversial answer.
Go for it.
I don't mind the location and the frequency of those bus stops. I've worked in communities where we're begging for a bus stop to be put in. We're begging for a light rail stop to be put in close to the library. We want to reach everyone, whether that's a commuter or someone who's taking shelter from the rain. We want to make sure we have ads on the buses. We want to be a good partner to TCAT. So what I have been taught is the key to public libraries or any urban space is activation. So we want there to be activities for everyone. We want boots on the ground. We want our staff to be roving. We want our staff to be empowered. So whether you're having a good day or a bad day, the staff that you encounter knows how to be kind to you and treat you with respect and give great customer service, but also hold those boundaries. So I always want to be at the table with discussions. If we're thinking about a new bus hub or what have you, like the library would love to be there, but how things are right now, since I have been here, have not experienced or observed any issues. Again, I walk through there a lot because I'm always running out of the office to get snacks. And, smiling at people, saying hello, asking them if they know about library services, if they want to get a library card. I actually like the activity and the fact that so many people in the community are coming through close to the library. So, and then again, as I said earlier, we have excellent security presence. So they're patrolling outside the branch, they're patrolling inside. We are able to, identify routine visitors on site by name. We want to be friendly to them. So, the best defense is a good offense, and I see that in practice here at TCPL. So thus far, we've had no issues, and I actually really like the activity coming from so many people coming on and off the buses.
Thanks for letting me ask all those questions.
Of course, Mike.
Let's see, Rich.
Yeah, thanks for coming and talking with us. Mike stole my question about the makerspace. I'm so happy to hear that that's getting used. But I just had a general question for you. Where do you see the biggest challenges for our library? And is there anything you'd be looking to the county to help with specifically?
I mean, you're such a strong partner. So one is if we are able to, like I said, thinking about succession planning, if we need 1 or 2 FTE to help support like the business office. The world is really nuanced and gray. And so that HR support, that budget support in terms of administrative staff understanding that to help teach and support the staff is really important. I know this is a really small one. I was hoping I could just come in on a weekend and like power wash the building, but apparently that's not a thing because the building is older and we're worried about the actual facility being damaged. So I do think that some of the weathering of the building impacts how welcoming we look to a tourist or an outsider. So little things like that, I'm really aware of making sure that our paint stays fresh, that we're not having issues with graffiti. I think depending on population growth and needs, it's one of the, it's actually the most beautiful building I've ever worked in, but in terms of real estate, are we going to be able 10, 20 years from now to fit all of our services and all of our staff and all of our collections in the same building? Like I mentioned to Mike, I think outreach is something to think about. So if there are places that the county has identified where you're offering satellite services and it makes sense that the library be at the table as a partner, I think that is an area of growth. And then again, and I did not come in here to be controversial, but I did want to point out, in case you're not a deep library nerd, your generosity is really going toward staffing and benefits, which is totally normal. That's the biggest piece of the pie and the pie chart. It does make me a little uneasy that 100% of our collections budget is funded by the Friends and the Foundation. Normally with a public library, that is included with routine funding from the funding partners, whether that's the county, the city, or the town, just for the stabilization portion of that. So I do think a long-range goal would be to work with you guys and figure out how to include the collections as more of a part of our standing budget, so that again, it's just more stable. And that's not to downplay the amazing successes of the Friends and the Foundation, but it is out of the ordinary for a library of this size for all of our collections budget to be reliant on outside sources. So those are a few things varying from very small, like the facade of the building, to more long range, like the collections and making sure that we're right fit inside the facility that we have. But there's nothing, to me, all of those things are very optimistic and hopeful and goals to work toward. There aren't any like huge red flags that I've observed since joining here. So well done, you.
Thank you. I have not walked around the back of the library in a little bit. Have you been having trouble with graffiti?
The only thing that we've identified is on the creek walk, which is where we use sometimes for like youth programming or staff go out there to take breaks. There's like a bench that just routinely has an issue. And staff have even said, like, is there an artist in the community we can partner with and have it become an art installation? How do we get routine? Because I know you guys only have so much resources. So if you're cleaning the same bench every week, that adds up. But nothing that's risen to the top where I've had to, ring the alarm on anything.
Not to get on a tangent, but one of the things that drives me just up the wall is when people do graffiti on public art, and that is a real problem, around our community, because we have so many beautiful murals and paintings. But the bench would be city responsibility, I believe. So we're not able to do much about that. But anyway, thanks.
No, good questions. Thank you.
And I'd add, if you're doing succession planning, you should play the music from the show.
That is a great idea.
Questions on this side of the room? Well, it does, the facilities question, I guess, the county, our facilities department takes care of this building, but how does that work? I guess I've never really fully understood. If you have an issue or something comes up, you just directly call Arel, or?
So let me just say on record, in case they're watching, Orel, Alan, Dana, Damien, the entire county facilities crew is the gold standard. They set the bar incredibly high. They are so incredibly responsive. We know them by name. We're so excited to see them. I know that they absolutely do everything they can anytime we call them to prioritize the library. And I cannot thank you, and I cannot thank them enough. Most of that coordination goes through our administrative manager, which is Mary McKeon. So she's constantly walking the building. She's getting, information about questions rolling up from her to her from staff. I can flag things. So luckily there have been wonderful internal procedures so that county isn't, getting me texting them in the middle of the night asking them about the carpet. So we try to prioritize because we know that they're busy and have limited resources. We routinely check in with them. They let us know. For example, we're getting new transformers on Friday after hours. We should be operational on Saturday morning. They've let us know. Johnson Controls has come through because we're looking at our HVAC. We're anticipating some work in August. So we have our sort of procedural chain, which goes through Mary on the library side and usually Dana on the facility side. But I have yet to see any sort of issue, slowdown, hiccup. In terms of county facilities, again, you guys set the standard, and we could not be happier and more grateful. There's a lot of pride and a lot of love coming into this building from everyone, and it really shows.
Great, that's great. I never quite fully understood how the relationship worked. Well, thank you so much. Oh, Rich has another question.
Just making a connection, the probation department runs the service work alternatives program, and the county court system has made a point of assigning community service hours to people who participate. And this seems like that might be a wonderful project for SWAP.
Yeah.
To do the exterior cleaning and make it a beautiful exterior again.
Yeah, and we have the co-op volunteers who help with our flower beds. So we always look, photo ready in that area. And again, because of the civic pride for the library, we have wonderful too custodial service. So hats off to you for that. We don't have a lot of trash. If something is thrown down, it almost immediately gets picked up. So again, there's a lot of civic pride in this building, and it shows. So that's why I get to come to you and talk about fun stuff like long-term visioning and answer questions about the makerspace instead of, coming to you saying, gosh, we're having problems with garbage or this, that, and the other. Those kinds of issues that we often stub our toes on really don't exist here.
That's great. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for being in Ithaca, and you are welcome to come back to Government Operations anytime. Doesn't have to be a holiday.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions about cards or whatnot, come on over. And yes, may the force be with you.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
All right. Let's see. We are going to do a resolution from ITS. Budget adjustment, budget transfer across budgeting units, 1450 Board of Elections, and 1692 Information Technology Services, ID 11668. Can somebody move that? Dan. Rich seconds. I don't know if anyone from IT is here, but I think it's maybe a standard budgeting transfer. Questions, comments? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. And now we get to talk to Darby. Welcome. Haven't seen you in a while.
It's my once a year chance to come to this committee. So hello, and meeting Lori for the first time. I'm Darby Kiley from the Tompkins County Department of Planning and Sustainability. And yeah, my once a year agenda item here is to talk about the foreclosure memo and recommendations from our department. And just to give a little bit of background, this agenda item starts on page 13 of the agenda packet. The county has a land transactions policy, that's section 0907, and that talks about how the staff reviews all the properties that are subject to tax foreclosure to see if there are any cultural, natural, historic resources, any concerns with zoning or land use plans, or any risks or liabilities if the county were to take title to the property. So the foreclosure list is generated in October of 2022, so the previous year, and that includes properties that are delinquent on their taxes if they're residential, delinquent for 3 years, and for vacant and commercial, it's 2 years delinquent. And actually, since I submitted the memo last week, there have been 2 more parcels redeemed, actually both residential parcels, 24 Eden Road in the town of Groton and 305 North Fulton in the city of Ithaca. And I know Lisa Schott over in finance is getting calls daily about some more redemption, so we might see more come off the list. So we're down to 9 vacant commercial parcels and 9 residential. So it's pretty low this year. And yeah, so not a whole lot, but Bill has a whole lot more about the Supreme Court and how this process works that I'm not going to talk about. But just to say, as part of our process, the next step is, there's a deadline in the next week or so for the last day to redeem a parcel, and then the auction is scheduled for June 5th at the Health Department at 55 Brown Road. And so our department reviews all of the properties, we map it all out, look at all these resources on it, reach out to the municipalities to see if they have any information on the properties, and then we draft recommendations. Katie and I review that with Lisa and get her input and approval, and have a nice 15-minute discussion on this. And so any of you who have been on this, several of you have been on this committee before, there's actually nothing new that we're recommending this year. There are a couple holdovers that we just need to get the paperwork in place this time around. And one is in the village of Freeville. It's on Fall Creek Road. It's a vacant parcel. The map that's part of here shows it partially in the flood zone. It's actually now all in that preliminary flood zone, the special flood hazard area. And so the village has been interested in purchasing this. We worked to move it along, but we hadn't taken title to it last year. So our recommendation is for the county to take title to it, not sell an auction, work with the village to sell it to them. So that's one recommendation. The other is that we have these stormwater parcels in the town of Newfield. And I have had some conversations with the supervisor there, and I know Randy Brown expressed interest and was going to follow up as well. But I think the best course of action this time is to not take title to them until the process actually shakes out. I mean, there is some history with, whatever, there's a long history about how this should have moved when the parcels were sold, and so we need to sort that out. Well, we don't. The town does. They have a stormwater operation and maintenance agreement that they need to follow. So those are the two recommendations. I include in there. There's pretty low amounts of town of Newfield. The parcels accumulate about $100 in taxes a year, and the village of Freeville want about a little under $200 per year. And I think the current taxes owed on that are about $2,200. So I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you. It's interesting to see the same parcels come back.
Hopefully no more. Hopefully this is the last time we see them.
Rich, Mike?
My recollection is that the two Newfield parcels were part of housing developments, and these are the drainage systems, and so the developer just let them go.
Yes, yeah, the operation and maintenance agreements that were signed in 2008, I think, they said that the parcels should be turned over to the neighboring parcel, so whenever the neighbor bought a property, they should have had been deeded to them, but that didn't happen when the parcels are sold, so that's there, yes, exactly.
Mike?
And I told Darby, I'm going to have to recuse myself on any discussion about 28 Leisure Lane. I've represented the owner of that and her family in various matters. Nothing to do with this, but I would feel uncomfortable voting on that.
Okay. Bill?
Can I just point out, share some information? I was talking the other day with a county attorney from up north. He's expecting anywhere from 150 to 300 foreclosures. I almost fell out of my chair. So whatever we're doing is pretty good. He was astonished in turn when he heard our numbers. So we should keep it up. Because I can tell you, I don't really enjoy foreclosing on people's homes, but despite the fact people think I'm Scrooge's, I'm really not.
Definitely doing the right things. Other questions? Drew?
Just I'll fill in with Rick's typical comment. When Darby comes, she's very sound. She's done her research. She has good reasonings. I think from the finance point of view, we need to be careful if, any parcel will come off the tax roll or not make it collectible.
Right.
So.
Yep.
I know that's a mute argument, but I think it should be in the record each year that.
Very good. We want to add everything to the record. And we're taking action in that we're approving what you're suggesting. We're not there's no formal resolution at this point.
Correct, yeah, and that is just to inform finance of the intention to, what to do with these parcels, yeah.
Right, so are folks comfortable making these approvals?
Yes.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And everyone who works on this process, I think, as Bill said it well, you guys do a good process and the result is good.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of behind the scenes with Bill and Lisa Schott in finance, and we're daily lately on the sending emails of like, what did you hear from this? And so there's a lot of sleuthing that goes on as part of this process, yeah.
All right.
And Darby and her crew are great to work with, so thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Moving right along. We have a number of resolutions in administration. So let's start with weights and measures. Resolution to adopt local law number C of 2023, local law amending Article 18 of the Tompkins County Charter to implement the restructure of the Department of Weights and Measures, ID 11581. Mike Lane moves, Rich seconds, and we'll look to Lisa to talk to us.
Thank you. So this resolution was already discussed and approved through the F&I committee. I'm happy to say and to update you from there. As we had discussed last year during the budget discussions, having a department of one poses significant challenges for the one person operating the department, and we had wanted for some time to look at potentials, different structures for consideration for the department. So we, and by we, Norma Jane did the bulk of the work on this, consulted with other counties about contracting for this work. And had a few different conversations there, but nothing that seemed to make good operational or economic sense for us. And then we looked at potentialities of putting the weights and measures functions under different departments. We considered the health department because through their environmental health, they have a consumer, protection function. And some counties throughout New York State are structured in that way. They would have been open to more discussion on that, but we also discussed with the highway department those functions there, and ultimately would recommend that only because the departments, the two departments have a past history of close collaboration. Also, they are in close proximity with one another. The Weights and Measures office is located on Boswick Road. They're alongside the highway department, and all of the tools and the trailers and the machinery and instruments needed for this function can be stored easily at the current Boswick Road location. That the same is not true for the health department. So after those conversations with Jeff, he agrees that this would be a good collaboration, and his department would be able to, he would be able to offer some supervision, and his department would be able to offer some administrative support to the position in terms of, routine vouchering and budgeting and so forth. So that's the thinking behind this. The other discussion that we had at the F&I committee was an acknowledgement that last year during the budget process, the legislature put aside funding for an additional position to work with the work in this office to support this position, and that this doesn't necessarily preclude that, but I think we wanted to make this change and then see where things stood, whether that is needed. So it certainly doesn't preclude it.
Okay, questions? Rich?
Is there any intent to have highway department personnel flex in and help with weights and measures?
There was a discussion about, some cross-training and ride-along. It is its own unique function with a certification needed, but as much as possible so that there is that kind of learning and understanding of what the position does and how it operates.
if we could avoid adding an FTE here through reliance upon some of the highway department staff, I would favor that.
Mike?
In discussing this at the committee with Jeff and Lisa, I think what you said is accurate, but I think Jeff's ability here is going to be fairly minimal as far as supervision, and from time to time to be able to give some administrative staff help. But I really think that we need to not lose track of this funding that we put in last year for basically another inspector to help with it. This, in my opinion, just can't continue as a one-person role. And I mentioned, take a look at what happened with the veteran service. We had started out with one person there, and now we've doubled it after, what, 1 year, 2 years with another person. One-person departments are real tough, and we had a situation in Weights and Measures where the inspector was out ill for several months, as I recall. And so that's always a problem. So I just wanted to add that into the discussion.
Thanks. Rich?
Sorry to double dip, but I did have a question. If this person is now in the highway department and reporting to the highway director, will they report to us at budget time? I would like to hear from Weights and Measure.
Yeah, they still could.
Thanks.
They will have their budgeting unit.
Yeah, that was, I had a similar question, excuse me. So would the highway director hire them, be the one hiring them?
Yes.
Okay. And, okay, but I agree. I think having them come to us at budget time would make sense. So as Mike says, we don't lose sight of that that's an important function. I think probably newer legislators don't even know that that is in existence until we hear from them. So, okay, anything else?
Also, just to mention, the parallel is true with the veterans, the Veteran Service Department. We did receive about $100,000 or more in New York State funding that covers the additional position there. So the Weights and Measures is 100% local.
Okay, anything else? All in favor? That's unanimous. I think we moved it. Okay, so let's go ahead and do Resolution E, which is authorizing a public hearing on the proposed law number C of 2023, local law to amend the Tompkins County Charter, Article 18, Department of Weights and Measures. Mike moves, Rich seconds. So this would be setting a public hearing to discuss this. And that would be on June 6th. Questions or comments? All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, moving right along. We have some discussion about some policies. Very exciting. Let's talk about the resolution to update the Administrative Policy Manual, Policy 9-21, Surplus Equipment and Supplies, ID 11582. Somebody move, Rich? Dan seconds, thank you.
So for these, I would like to, well, Bridget, would you mind coming up? And I wanted to recognize Kat McCarthy from the Department of Recycling Materials Management, who worked on the surplus equipment policy as well as the changes to the procurement policy. So if she can speak to some of those.
Great, thanks for being here, Kat. Good to see you again. I've also participated in the EPP team the environmentally preferred procurement team, which includes a handful of folks. And we meet monthly, although I'm not always there, but we've talked through a number of policies, including the surplus equipment policy. So I'm glad to see this here. I don't know, do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Kat?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this is a longstanding policy that outlines a strategy through which materials are reused first internally. If there's no use for them internally, they can be offered up for external reuse. If that's not viable, then it recommends that materials are first recycled where possible, and then kind of as your last alternative, disposal. This resolution is looking to just promote or propose some updates to that policy. One example might be computer equipment, where the materials are being handled differently. On the EPP team is a representative from ITS who kind of folded in some of the current practices for that. And I guess the only other thing I would note is just that this resolution was brought to peak as well and was supported by that committee. And the other thing that I should mention that I forgot as well is that along with this policy update, in the past, there was an email listserv. So when somebody had an item, there was a group that they could send a notification that this item is available out to. We will be in the process with the policy update of also updating that system. So it's more of a web-based forum as opposed to the email system to really highlight and kind of make it a little more user-friendly for people to share equipment and materials through the county.
Great. Questions, comments? Mike?
Just trying to understand why we have added real property to the fixed asset definition. We aren't talking about this for disposal of real property, are we?
No, I don't think so.
I would defer to administration on that one because I believe that was something that's matching another policy, if I recall correctly, but I would anticipate they might be able to speak to that better.
Yeah, that's correct. It's consistent with the definition of fixed assets in another policy. So just making the consistent definitions across policies.
And that's just for accounting?
For accounting?
Yeah.
Yes.
But not for disposal or selling or anything like that?
No, correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Would it make sense to add a sentence indicating that real property is treated in a different way?
Purposes of surplus equipment.
Yeah, so somebody doesn't go sell some real property.
Well, I think
Donate it.
I think in the policy,
Does it say it elsewhere? I can't remember.
There's a definition of surplus equipment
Yeah.
as well in the policy.
So on packet page 26, policy B, when a department possesses surplus equipment, surplus supplies, or surplus computer equipment, the following blah, blah, blah shall be implemented. So it's sort of saying, here's.
But it doesn't say real estate is treated separately.
On packet page 25, under the definition of, there are definitions of surplus equipment. So I think.
Right, I guess I'm not sure, why do we need the definition of fixed asset in here? Is it referred to elsewhere?
That's a good question.
If I recall correctly, I believe that it's just clarifying that a fixed asset is not treated as surplus equipment and kind of providing for folks that that is a material that would be handled through another process.
And maybe we just add a phrase at the end of that saying, and are treated under different county policies, other county policies.
In the policy section?
Under the definition of fixed asset, you have all the words that are there, and then at the end, you just say, comma, and are addressed through other county policies.
Though some fixed assets can be
Right.
covered under
Right.
this policy, vehicles and equipment are fixed assets. So we're talking, the real property would not
Then
be.
why don't we say, and real property fixed assets are treated under other county policies? Does that address the concern?
Yeah, but, I'd say but.
But,
Treated under another policy. I think that would. It just, it confused me to see real property in here at all.
I think that real property is not included in the definition of surplus equipment, which is.
what is referred to in the policy.
So I see it as covered, but if we want to put another sentence under fixed assets to clarify that real property, parentheses, land and buildings are not considered.
yeah, we're just not
surplus
saying
equipment.
anything explicit, right? And
Thank you. I think that would be a great idea.
Yeah, so, I mean, if that's what you want to do, I guess that's fine, but it is pretty clear in B, policy B, any fixed asset item that is defined as surplus equipment must be reported to the Division of Purchasing. So real property is not defined as surplus equipment. So, you feel very strongly about adding a sentence? Okay. Can you do that? Okay. Anything else? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Thanks for working on that, Kat. All right, I lost my paper. Here we go. Let's do resolution to update administrative policy manual, policy 0607, procurement, ID 11639. Can I have somebody move that? Susan, seconded by Rich. And I think this has a fairly small change. Is this Cat 2 to look to?
Yes. And yes, this is a fairly small change. There was an agenda handout as well on the New York State Green Purchasing Communities program that explains a little bit of the detail of the program and why we're requesting this change through the EPP team. Basically, as outlined in the handout, in December of 2022, the Green Purchasing Communities program was launched, and it's an intent to make it easy for local governments to buy products and services with a lower environmental impact. Some of the benefits of participating in this program include having access to specs that are updated on a continual basis for ongoing improvement, potential for recognition, as well as potential for participation and points towards the Climate Smart Communities program, which I know Terry is on the call here as well from planning, and I think can speak a little bit to the Climate Smart activity component.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just briefly say we're currently a silver certified community. It expires in September of this year, so we're trying to become recertified. The application's due in July. So this is a component of it. You know, previously we had the highest point total in the state. You know, for bragging rights, I'd like to continue to have that distinction. So anything that gets us more points, I'm obviously in favor of. But just to make sure that we continue to be the silver level, which is currently the highest level, you know, I think is a really great thing. And this is a thing that we're already looking at. You know, the other day from Kat's office, somebody was asking about buying new recycling bins, and we were already going on there and seeing if there were buy green standards that we could be following. So I do think this is something that will ultimately be pretty helpful for folks.
Yeah, great. Sounds good. Questions, comments? Rich?
yeah, I'm sorry to bring it up now, but I think I've been planning to talk about this at GO, and this is actually an opportune moment. The Ethics Advisory Board recently issued a report, and most of that report involved the city, because we were sitting as the city ethics advisory board because they don't have one. But there also was a portion of the complaint that applied to the county. And I'd like to just first start out by saying thank you to county administration for cooperating, which wouldn't seem controversial, but it turned out to be. But the county did its job, I think, smoothly and helpfully. And as a result, we were able to complete our investigation at the Ethics Advisory Board. We did make one finding regarding the procurement of services by the county. And I don't want to get into the tangled tale, but pretty clearly what happened in summary is that the city had retained a particular vendor to provide services and then presented that to the county as a fait accompli. And rather than go through the procurement policy or apply it, the county accepted the services provider that the county accepted the city endorsed supplier and went forward on that basis. And in hindsight, we should have conducted our own review. And I'm happy to entertain any questions on that and to enter into discussion, but I think under the circumstances, how the county proceeded was sort of understandable. We were trying to cooperate with the city. It was a new endeavor. It was trying to be done at some speed, and, you know, hindsight's 20/20. But what I would like to see in this procurement policy is something that directly addresses free goods and donated services, goods and services that are either free or donated. And perhaps at the end of the section on best value, to put in a clause 5 or paragraph 5 that talks about even in circumstances where goods or services are donated or free or presented on a free basis, that there's the requirements of the procurement policy are still required. And I'd specifically mention conflicts, debarment, insurance, and compliance with anti-discrimination policies.
So, okay, thank you for all of that. Let me just go one step back. Are there questions or comments about the changes that have been made about the green part?
No, sorry.
That's okay, by anyone else? I don't think there are. Okay, so I think we're good on that. So thank you for bringing that up, Rich. Is this something obviously you want to talk about right now? Do you want to try to make an amendment right now to adjust this, or do we want to look at?
I guess I'd defer to county administration. Do you want to try to do something today, or is it urgent? Do you want to take some time to?
Well, I would just say that the passing of the policy as it stands now with the green language, we are on a bit of a timeline for that piece. So if we can't nail down the language for the other piece, I would suggest that we come back to that or put it on the table or however. And
that's fine, and that might give you a further chance. I'm concerned that we issued the ethics report and that it gets buried, that we don't take the action. So as long as we understand that and we proceed on the county level, I can't speak, obviously the city seems to be doing a good job of burying, but we should not. We should address this.
I think Dan had it.
Yeah, I think we should, I'm in favor of all. I think we should not do it today, because we also have a policy on policies where those kind of changes do need to be looked at by a larger group of people. So. And Rich, can you fix your nameplate, please? It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's
askew.
Thank you. It's askew. Lisa?
So thank you, and I think we will be discussing it at a later date. And I've been giving this item a great deal of thought, Rich, since the ethics report came out. And I think that it's an interesting question because we partner all the time with Cornell, various schools at Cornell. We get free services all the time. The Living Wage Partnership, that was probably 5 years of work and partnership that Cornell researchers did on the county's behalf, and there wasn't a procurement policy or a procurement procedure that we followed there, unpaid internships, et cetera. So I think that it's an interesting question, and how it's applied will take some thought, I think.
I agree, and certainly there can be de minimis amounts, and we should try to encourage free goods and services where appropriate. A former city chief of staff had a saying that, if somebody's proposing something for free, you really have to determine, can you afford it? You know? And I think in this instance, there's some truth to that.
Very true. Yep. If I could just mention, here's a good example. Finger Lakes Land Trust was given a piece of 50 acres of land out in Dryden, and really didn't want it, but they wanted to control it. So they wanted to give it to the town of Dryden, subject to a conservation easement, which they would control. And the town said, well, it's free, let's do it. Well, they got into a lot of things like building access to it, parking spaces and things like that, so it could be used. So Rich is exactly right. Free isn't always free. And I think this is great. May I make a suggestion? Perhaps Rich could do a brief one-paragraph memo to administration, ask them to review this out of committee, or maybe you should, Amanda, as the chair, and then make it come back to us, and that way it would be documented and it wouldn't be forgotten.
Yeah.
That would be fine. And Amanda, if you'd be willing to do that, I think that's appropriate.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. And I think you have heard us, and if we can move this forward and bring this back, I think that'd be great. Okay. Okay, I think we have to vote on this. All in favor? That's unanimous. So while Kat is here, Dominic, are you there? You guys are in for a real treat right now. Kat invited me, oh boy, Mike Sigler's here now too. You ready for a real?
I figured it'd be done by now.
No, you got to watch what's up next. Because of the EPP team, the rules and policy changes that we've been making, Kat and the folks at Recycling and Materials Management wanted to make a video to share with staff about the changes and things that folks need to know about when they are purchasing items. So Kat invited me, and we had an interesting time with Rob Henry videoing us, and we put together a video for your entertainment. And Dominic, I believe, is going to share it with you.
And we're going to come back to the other,
the
other resolution. Okay.
We will.
Thanks.
This is along the same line, so keeping things together.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I did not bring popcorn, but you're going to love this. Dim the lights, dim the lights.
Can you confirm that you can see this? I spend a lot of time telling people how to share screen, but I don't do it myself as often.
Yes, you can see it.
All right. Well, I'll hit play, and hopefully the audio works for everyone here.
Through its procurement policy, Tompkins County has committed to buying environmentally preferred products. These products have a reduced effect on human health and the environment as compared to similar products used for the same purpose.
This help makes our work environment safer, contributes to overall sustainability goals, reduces waste, and sometimes can save money. As county employees, we all share a role in supporting this policy. An EPP team has been developed to help meet the goals of the policy and also to share resources to support green purchasing. Department heads are responsible for maximizing the procurement of environmentally preferred products and sustainable products to the greatest extent possible. And as employees, we can help by requesting products with green attributes as well as certifications.
So how do we incorporate EPP into our purchases?
Be aware of what you're buying and consider the environmental, social, and financial impact of products. Look for alternatives to single-use water bottles, plastic utensils, and styrofoam products.
Buy products with recycled content, like recycled office paper.
Pick items that can be refilled, like this pen.
Select products that are designed to be recycled, like this binder.
Consider green services or rentals instead of buying equipment. Leasing this copier reduces in-house maintenance needs.
Seek out products containing less hazardous materials with certifications like Green Seal. And buy items with less packaging.
Some purchasing sites like Staples Advantage have an option to sort for EPPs.
When you're buying something, ask yourself, do I really need it?
Can I get it secondhand?
Can I find a reusable item instead of a disposable item?
And does it contain recycled content? For more information, check out the procurement policy and stay tuned for more tips on green purchasing from the EPP team.
It seemed to work.
It's a work of art. It's going to Sundance.
Yeah. Special thanks to Rob. Rob has been incredible at making these videos on all different types of topics. And this is a great example of the type of work that we're able to do having that position here at the county. So thank you. And thanks to Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Rob was great to work with. He was very patient when Kat and I could not get our lines right. And we went all around the recycling department, taking pictures and setting up. If you watch it again, you will notice in the background there's a plant that we moved around to be in as many shots as possible. So we had a good time, and I thank Kat and Rob for including me in that. And it was definitely a good experience. So I think one of the things we were going to also talk about, in all seriousness, was distributing this to staff and including it so folks know that this is our policy, here's some things you can think about, and it's not just a policy in a book somewhere on the internet, it actually is something we want people to follow through with. So I don't know if Dominic or Kat, you had other thoughts on that, or if folks here wanted to share any thoughts.
Yeah, we discussed that a little bit this morning as the video just got completed. So we're kickstarting that launch plan. We plan to show this at the staff town hall tomorrow and start to share it with staff after that as well. And then Kat's going to work with the folks at purchasing, compliance and training, and HR to work it into onboarding, training, and just on the purchasing materials for the county. So I'm hoping that those places will be a great start to getting it out to everyone from there.
Great. Mike?
At the beginning of the video, they mentioned one of the factors should be pricing. How much more does the recycled and the things that we'd like to buy cost, as opposed to, I'm thinking about paper, for example, as opposed to it? And do we have any way of calculating that so that we can make a reasoned decision that we're willing to spend the extra money because of the environmental factors involved?
Yeah, well, in the EPP team, there is a person from purchasing, and Drew just came up, and I don't know if Kat has a response to that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And I think that is one of the components of the EPP team, is really both raising awareness for these products and encouraging people to identify and procure those when possible. And I think the more we're able to leverage the existing specs and some of these other pieces, one of the goals of that Green Communities program is to make this more prevalent and kind of help make it more cost competitive as well. So I think it's really a product by product basis. There are some cases where, across the board, if we're buying a certain volume, we may be able to see some of those prices come down. But there's also products that I think are just as cost competitive. So it really depends on the item. And I know that New York State has a few examples where they are finding products that are actually less expensive with those green specs. So I think that's something that we're going to continue to focus on throughout the moving forward with the team.
That's great. Thank you.
Rich?
To that point, if you are looking further at the procurement policy, that might be an element to add to paragraph 4 of best value, that environmental considerations.
Well, there's the whole section.
It's not in the best value, I just looked.
Oh,
And best value allows an examination outside of pure cost.
right. It's got its whole own section. But maybe we could discuss that a little further, and I would see what administration and what Kat thinks about if we need to add that more directly. Anything else? I'd like to thank the Academy and thank our wonderful staff, and thank you for the whole EPP team who's been working on this. It's really important, and it means a lot to me. So thank you, Kat.
Yes, thank you all, and thank you, Amanda, for your starring role in this. So thank you very much.
All right. Anything else on procurement? I think we're good on that. All right. So let's do this last resolution under administration to update the administrative policy manual, policy 4-18, meal expense reimbursement meetings, ID 11637. Somebody move that, please. Dan, Rich seconds. And I believe this is just being abolished.
Yes, that's correct. So as you can see, the original policy has not been reviewed in many, many years. And we have just recently, in the fall of last year, done some significant revisions to our travel training reimbursement policy, where meal expenses are covered in that policy. So upon review of this policy, we determined that it is time to abolish it.
I thought you were going to a no food policy.
Well,
We're already there.
Yeah, and I believe the other policy, because I did look it up, is policy 4-10, and that it does cover it pretty well. So, any other questions? All right, all in favor? Abolish it. That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, thank you for working on all those policies. We're going to talk to Katrina. Months ago, some folks had brought up the idea of like our plaque for the Poets Laureate. Maybe we would get a plaque for the clerks of the legislature going back in time. And I think Katrina has looked into that for us.
I have. I am the 43rd clerk, so there's 43 total so far. And I checked with Dana from Facilities, and we reached out to the same place that did our plaque for the Poets Laureate, and we kind of recommend doing 2 plaques instead of trying to put all the names on one, and they would be similar to the way that one's laid out. And the total cost would be $826, and that would be with space for 50 names.
On 2 different plaques?
On 2 different plaques.
Okay.
We would do 25 on each.
Okay.
And I just need to know if that is the will of the legislature to move forward.
Mike?
I think this is a good idea. I think we talked about it quite a bit. I'd like to move it.
Okay. Would there be a second to move forward in purchasing these? Rich seconds that. Other questions or comments?
What was the cost on?
I would be, for a new one would be, for 2 new ones would be $826 total.
That's all the engraved plaques,
That's
right?
with all the, that's with 50 plates.
And I had a question. I think we talked about if you would find the funding in your budget or the legislature.
I believe we could find fund. I think there's funds in our personnel services line.
Okay. Any other Thoughts, questions? I'm grateful that you looked into
Can we
this for
put
us.
Kathy Covert's name like really big in the middle of the?
Sure, of course. I mean, she was probably the longest, yeah, so she could be in like bright red or something.
Yes, if she's watching, Kathy.
I hope she's doing something more
I hope
fun
she's
right
not,
now.
yes.
Dan says she's used her parking permit.
Yes, she has.
That's awesome. That's great. All right. I guess all in favor of purchasing these? Great. Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Okay. Let's talk about Robert's Rules of Order. So last time, one of the requests was to talk about taking a recess, and that is in here. Also, it sort of seemed to go together with some other topics that I was thinking about. The first one is to raise a question of privilege, which I didn't know what that was, as separate from a point of order, which is also included in here. So I thought it would be good to have all of these added in one discussion time. And I don't know, folks, if there's anything you want to bring up or you noticed while reading this. The other thing that I was not aware of, that there was something called that the meeting could stand at ease. So I think that would be if, I don't know, people were leaving and people were greeting people as the public was leaving, the chair could say, the meeting stands at ease, and folks could sort of do that, saying goodbye to people and then go back to the meeting without actually taking a recess. So I thought that was interesting.
When the screens go up.
When the screens go up, or, yeah. And then I guess, I don't know if other folks knew about this idea of raising a question of privilege, but I thought that was a good, simple concept of being able to say that there's sirens outside, or the windows need to be open because we're all too hot, or, so I raise a question of privilege, and then something, sort of immediate needs to be fixed. And that's different from a point of order, which is related to the business and the process of the meeting. So I thought that was interesting to differentiate. And then I guess just about recess, I think we probably use this pretty accurately. You can actually schedule a recess into your meeting, and then members can make sure we take a recess. Pretty straightforward. Mike?
Yeah. Someplace where we may need to use it at some point, and we've talked about it, a recess, is like when we have a disruption going on, and we may need to stop the meeting and recess and leave chambers.
Right.
Because there may be someone who is being difficult out there, and
Like, you mean like a public comment,
yeah,
or
something like that,
Right.
or we get a demonstration that prevents us from discoursing regularly. Right. We may need to do a recess.
Yeah. Dan?
So, but what about the way in which we normally take our break? Is that not strictly following this? It seems like you have to vote. Unless
Take
it's
a recess.
in the agenda. I'm just not completely clear. I'm not sure I care, but I care, but I'm not sure we should change.
No, don't play with that.
It doesn't seem urgent.
Doesn't seem urgent.
Right.
No point of privilege has been invoked.
Right. It does describe it as if someone has to make a motion versus the chair just saying, we're in recess for 10 minutes.
Unless it's already in the agenda. I think it says that or something.
Right, but it's not in
Right.
We don't put it in our agenda.
Perhaps we should change our local rules to say we're allowed to take recess
The chair can.
without objection.
Right, the chair can call for a recess without objection.
And I guess we could have somebody stand up and say, I object.
I do not want to take a break.
No break, yeah.
If you think about it, from time to time, the chair will say, you know, we've only got a couple things left. Do you want to do a break, or do you want to move
Right.
through? So we consult with the group
Yeah,
time to time.
yeah.
I like that. I think it'd be worthwhile putting a sentence in the rules somewhere that
Rules,
just says we can
okay.
do it.
Okay. It's always fun to revise the rules of the legislature. Okay, anything else? Anybody want to have a point of order or stand at ease for a few minutes?
I would like to compliment Dan for tabling stuff at Community Recovery Fund meeting the other day.
You had it for me. I kept looking over to you, so thank you.
It would have been quicker and required less note-taking if we'd just withdrawn it.
That was actually my suggestion. Somebody else wanted to table it, so we did.
All right, well, we'll have more Robert's Rules next month. I think somebody had asked to talk about quorum, so I'll bring that one up next time. Rich?
I was just going to follow up on Mike's comment that we did actually have that situation at Public Safety where somebody came in on privilege of the floor and would not fill out the blue card and wouldn't identify themselves and didn't agree to abide by any of the rules. And Peter Stein was the vice chair, I was the chair, and this person just kept speaking over me as I said, no, you do need to fill out the blue card. And Peter said, take a recess. And we did. And this person just yelled at everybody in the room while we got up and walked around. It was a very odd moment, but it was the right thing to do. Although we then got sued, but beyond that,
yeah. You know, for whatever it's worth. So that would actually require a vote, though.
we did vote.
Okay.
We did vote.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think the consultation part makes sense, and if it's easy enough to add to the rules of the legislature, we can do that as well. Okay, thank you all. All right, we would like to also bring up a discussion that we talked about last summer. It came up, the question of if legislators are attending luncheons, we all get invited to, you know, whatever, the IAED luncheon or other events, local events that cost $25, $35, $50. And some folks have felt like this should be something that's covered, considering how little we get paid. And that we're going to these things in the capacity of our job and not as a private citizen. So I think we had briefly discussed it, but we didn't really have a full conversation. Brittany included the minutes of that meeting in the packet so you can see what was said at that time. So I think in the minutes, Greg noted that it should probably mirror what's acceptable for staff, which is probably the case. I don't know if staff really get invited to, I mean, I don't know, invited to luncheons or whatever that they would have to pay for. Probably, I mean, yeah.
Meaning managers or staff?
Anybody.
Yes.
And do they have to pay for it out of their own pocket?
No, they don't. The organization pays.
Right.
If it's work-related, certainly.
Right. So as I mentioned, that policy is policy 410, and I don't have it in front of me, but
I don't know if it says in there specifically, like, does it define those sorts of things? Do you know, Bridget? Microphone.
So under 410, it should cover expenses for meals as it relates to work-related trainings or meetings.
So, but isn't that related to, like, if you're out and it's like that chart, which is like lists how much you can be reimbursed for any given meal? So this is a little bit separate. This is like you get invited to the Human Services Coalition lunch and it's $25.
Right.
Doesn't the old policy have something to do with out of county too? Doesn't it specifically say that? Or am I making that up?
For meal reimbursement?
Yeah.
Would that be like a registration fee?
Yeah, it could be.
Because I know when we register for NISAC conference, that's included in the registration fee, the meals or certain meals.
Right. Mike?
We pay our legislators probably more than most counties around here do. I don't think having a legislator pay for the legislator's own luncheon is it's something that we shouldn't expect that person to do. I don't think we need to reimburse legislators for that. I'm not talking about staff. I'm only talking about legislators. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I disagree. I think that this is a job, and we're asked to go to these things, a lot of these things, and not all of us can afford to go to them. And if it means the difference between not going or being able to go and have it paid for, I think that can make a difference. So it would be good to have clarity, though, on what the reimbursement for staff is and how that could relate to legislators or to mirror that. Other thoughts? Rich?
I think structurally it makes sense that we're treated the same as staff and that we are representing the county, but I think Mike makes a point. I don't feel strongly about this, and I don't think that the cost of the lunch has prevented me ever from going to an event, saying, well, but I guess if I could get reimbursed, I might, but.
Okay. It has prevented me from going to numerous things. Lisa?
Yes, I would weigh in to say it was my assumption that legislators were included in the same category as staff with this. I just didn't, I never really gave it much thought. In the same way, I know that there are managers that attend luncheons and pay for it out of their own pocket, and some, but it is, they are eligible and can submit reimbursement for it. Mm-hmm. So that could apply here as well, but it's your call.
Yeah.
Katrina, is there a line item for this?
I believe it would come out of our travel and training line.
Right. I mean, that's the line that legislators have sort of prescribed for us.
We have that line, and then local mileage are the only two lines we really have.
Right.
And I believe that's the line that most departments take it out of as well, if
Is
they
the
attend.
Travel and training?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there still a countywide travel and training account through HR? Or?
Countywide trade, yes. Mm-hmm.
Cost of being famous.
I don't know if
I'll
it's
jump in with
famous,
Amanda.
but-
I also have just, it is a factor for me as well when I look at the costs.
Well, if that's the case, then I guess I would support us advancing a clear policy to say reimbursement. Let's go to events.
And I think if you don't, like with the local mileage, if you don't submit it, you don't have to. No one's going to say you have to, be reimbursed for something. But I think for folks who travel longer distances or who, go to more events, that kind of thing can add up for sure. Yeah, Rich.
If we're going to formalize this, I would like us perhaps to define what is an event that is reimbursable, that it's not.
Right.
It's not a bunch of legislators going out for lunch. It has to be a formal event by, say, a not-for-profit organization, local agency. Yeah. Where they're attending in their official capacity as a county legislator.
Okay.
Murky.
Yes, there's some murk there, but.
Well, but I think you get to the point of, it's not just us going out after a legislature meeting. We've been invited to a specific event that costs money for a local agency or organization.
An event that we probably would not have been invited to had we not been a county legislator.
Right.
That's work to me.
I'm pretty sure IAED is not going to invite me to their events unless I have this job. Katrina.
If we're going to look at the rules of the legislature, we could include that.
Okay.
The clarity in that section of the rules of the legislature.
Okay, maybe we can talk more about what it would specifically say, and then we could have an amendment or a resolution to change those two parts of the rules.
Rule 15 of the legislature is actually expenses incurred in the performance of official duty. And it reads, the actual and necessary expenses incurred by legislators in the performance of powers and duties of the county shall be a county charge. Such expenses may include travel to and from legislature and committee meetings, other travel on official county business, meals while on county business, official telephone calls, etc. Expenses should be itemized and submitted to the clerk of the legislature for reimbursement. Expenses may be submitted at the discretion of each legislator, but expenses for any given year must be submitted no later than January 31st of the following year. So it kind of encompasses that as well, I think.
So maybe we could just add in there events or luncheons from a nonprofit, invitation. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Brittany. Okay, other thoughts, questions on that? Drew has his hand up.
I can circulate, I think this was addressed, I'll have to go back and read it, but I can circulate the Office of State Controller did a pretty extensive audit of Cortland, I think it was, and addressed a lot of their food issues. So I'll circulate this to that committee and see if that influences any of the wording they come up with.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think it'd be great to clarify this, though, so I'm glad you're getting in there.
Yeah, it's been a question for a while, so, okay. Okay, thank you, everyone, on that. Reports, I was just gonna say a couple things. I am the liaison to the PIAB, the Public Information Advisory Board, which Dominic operates, and there's a small group of local volunteers who are related to communications and news, and we meet once a month. But we've really struggled to have consistent attendance and to get enough folks involved. So I'm just sort of publicly saying, if you know folks who are in the communications field or are journalists, reporters, anything along those lines, it'd be really great to pull in a few more folks. As I said, the group meets once a month and essentially is an advisory board for Dominic to talk to bounce ideas off of. They are an advisory board to the legislature, although we don't really have them come here that much, but we could. And it's a good group to have, but I think we need to sort of get some more enthusiasm, and if we can bring in some more folks from the community, that would be great. I don't know, Dominic, do you have any other thoughts about recruitment or what you'd like to see in the board?
I think you shared most of what I would have said. I think we've been trying to diversify that group across different backgrounds as well. So we have, I think it's a great core group, but yeah, I certainly would encourage people. We hear a lot from the public about that we could be doing more on public information, and so this is a great way for people who want local government to get in touch with more residents, to consider the ways we can do that and to advocate for that change. So thank you for bringing it up here. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thanks for keeping that group going. And lately we've been having some good conversations, but again, it'd be great to bring in some new perspectives. So if anyone out there is listening and wants to reach out, please do. Mike.
If we do have a difficult budget this year, which is likely, and we have a high property tax increase, we might want to think about doing the dog and pony shows again, which we used to do, to going out to the community. We didn't get a huge turnout for those, but it showed we were interested in people understanding what was going on in the budget.
Yeah, and that's something that the communications director could lead up, and with this advisory board support, yeah.
Miniature ponies, right?
Miniature ponies.
County policy.
You? And then the other thing I was going to say, which maybe Lisa is going to talk about, but the strategic planning process is underway. I attended my first meeting of that, and I tell you what, these folks are really enthusiastic. They had lots of great ideas. It was a meeting to plan more meetings, and we outlined kind of how we're going to move forward. One thing to let you all know, legislators, is that there will be a retreat or meeting time for all legislators to come together for potentially 4 hours to talk about all things strategic planning, but specifically with legislators and to get our perspective. So keep that in the back of your mind for whenever that comes up in several months. And that's all I have. So Lisa?
Well, you hear quite a bit from me, and I see there's a slot for Deputy County Administrator. So Bridget has some more details about our grant consultant. So I'll yield my time to Bridget.
Okay, thanks.
Sure, thanks, Lisa. So as you're all aware, this year's budget included some funding to contract with a consultant to assist with professional grant writing, researching grant opportunities, and we are in the final stages of reviewing consultants. We interviewed some, and we have selected the one that we would like to move forward with. So we're just in the process of finalizing the scope, and we'll move into the contracting process with that selected firm. This is a firm that will not only be able to help us identify potential grant funding, but also help us as an organization better improve our capacity to apply in the future for future grant funding. So we're excited about them being able to do both things. Is there anything that I missed on that? Okay. And just in regards to the strategic operations planning, thanks both to you, Dan and Amanda, for joining. We've had a couple of meetings at this point for our smaller steering committee, and Amanda is correct in that we're sort of moving towards gathering stakeholders in order to reach out and get some input to begin to inform that process. We also have a separate meeting with a DEI consultant that has been provided by the consultant, and we're really looking to center equity in our strategic operations planning process. So every strategy that we select will be selected through an equity lens. So that's really a baked-in component that this consultant was able to provide us, which is sort of what led us to select them in the first place. So I think that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Bridget? All right. Bill, any updates?
All right. Thank you. Director of Finance, we'd like to welcome Lori Scarrett. You've all met by now, but welcome to Government Operations, which is the best committee.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd just like to update, as Darby referred to earlier, that the Finance Department has been working extremely hard on the outstanding foreclosure listings, and we're down to just a few, very small number.
And a little bit closer to your microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
About 6 inches away.
Okay. And that auction will be, the pre-meeting for the auction is May 30th, and the auction itself will be June 5th. I also wanted to update you that we are shifting our focus to the year-end audit. Our auditor from Insero was on site this past Tuesday and will be here again tomorrow, so we're excited to get working on that and hopefully get that wrapped up as quickly as we can. Drew, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
I'm good. You covered it great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Questions?
Yeah. Thank you to Drew and Lori for the update on the foreclosures that we got. In between, we got an original list and then an update. I think it was Tuesday, maybe. And I was going to ask if we could get one more update after the last day when no more changes can be made. Because I'm in touch with my towns quite a bit about this. They're really interested in it. Thank you.
Provide that.
Any other questions? All right. Let's go to Dominic for any updates from communications.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, just a few very brief updates. I know that there's been a lot of conversation about the FEMA flood insurance rate map changes at several different committees. I just wanted to let this group know or reiterate that we are sort of leading the charge on a public information campaign across the county. The planning department folks I've been working with have been excellent, and we are hopefully soon, now that those town halls happened last week with FEMA, we'll be putting out a whole set of information, kind of like a toolkit for local nonprofits, municipal officials, et cetera, to share online or print. And so I've been working on those documents, and we'll hopefully have that out to legislators and officials within the next week or so with updates there. So thanks to Planning Department, and just to let you all know that if you have any feedback or questions or frequently asked questions we can add to those materials, send them my way, and happy to look into those things for folks. And the second thing I'll share, and you've all heard about this at least at last month's meeting, but we've been working on an internal group, and Amanda's been a part of it, regarding the county's website and planning for the future of that, and looking at what we need to do better on the website, what staff are looking for, what we've heard from the public, and sort of figuring out how we can make that the best user experience, both for the public and for our employees and our staff who use the website to get information posted. And so we don't have results from that yet. We have one more meeting with the group, and we'll hopefully have some thoughts and recommendations after that. But that group's been going well, and thanks to Amanda for being a part of it.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing how it all unfolds with, improving the website. Questions for Dominic? Dan.
Dominic, I heard two questions raised about the FEMA flood maps that I couldn't answer, and so maybe they're in your list already or not, but can I just give them to you?
Sure, yeah.
So one was, I know and other people know how to find these maps and search the map, but is there a way to actually just type in an address and find out if that address is in or out?
Yep, I can. The map does have an address lookup, though it is a little clunky for some folks. Folks can also call 211, and 211 has the ability to search someone's address. So yeah, I can make sure that is very clear in the FAQs, and we can have some screenshots of where to type that in on the map.
Thank you. And then the other question was, besides the fact of the flood itself, the reason that people are paying so much attention to this is the insurance issues. And someone asked, if you own a home outright or property outright, are you required to get flood insurance? That's the question I couldn't answer.
Yeah. a great question, and that's no only if you have a federally backed mortgage. About 50% of mortgages in America are federally backed, and there's several different ways that can occur, and that will be added to the FAQs as well. And actually, that's something that 211 has already been inquiring with us about for more information, because people are asking that question. And for folks listening, the best thing to do is to, if you're worrying about whether you have a federally backed mortgage or not, contact your lender or your bank.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Yeah. Mike?
Well, Dominic, I think other lenders, even without federally backed mortgages, could require there to be flood insurance in a property within a 100-year floodplain. So it may be automatically required by the federals, but I think it can also be required by the other lenders.
By the lenders. Sure, yeah, and that's why we're telling people to contact those lenders. But if you do own it outright, you wouldn't be required.
Correct.
That's a good point, Mike. Thank you.
All right, anything else for Dominic? Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Any updates from committee members on anything or anything else you want to bring up today? There are 2 budget adjustment items for information only, and I think we are good to go. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We are adjourned.